Joining us here in his usual Monday spot, just like last year, we're thrilled to have the host of Greenlight Podcast and one of the analysts of the newfangled Inside the NFL on the CW, our friend Chris Long, back here on the Rich Eisen Show. How you doing, Christopher?
Rich, did you guys say unders?
I don't know what you mean.
Baby.
Yeah, unders.
Chris, it takes a man to bet unders.
Yeah, I guess I'm a man because week one, it's like taking candy from a baby.
Is that what happened last? Because again, I don't. I'm like the unfrozen caveman host when it comes to that. Being an NFL guy, I don't know what your terms confuse me. It was an under day yesterday, Chris?
Yeah, a little bit. Usually, week ones, you want to bet the home divisional dogs. You want to bet the dogs. You usually want to bet the Steelers. Not yesterday, and the unders.
I mean, how wild was that game that Niners just blew the doors off of them? Chris, did that surprise you?
No, I mean, I put the Niners in the Super Bowl this year. I think Brock Purdy's great. The big question was going to be, what's he look like off that surgery? I think in a couple years, you'll look at him as one of those top 10 quarterbacks. I mean, I know sometimes the weapons get held against him, but he makes a lot of great throws off schedule, off platform. I just thought Pittsburgh wasn't ready, man. The linebackers were all turned around. The rushers looked great up front for San Francisco. Drake Jackson, all their supporting role guys. And then to get Nick Bosa off the beach, I mean, he's down there in Florida just hanging out, waiting to get paid. He looked great. So, I thought a big win for San Francisco. They look even better than last year in some ways. And Pittsburgh's just got to flush it. If I'm getting on the plane and I'm Pittsburgh and I'm Mike Tomlin, I'm saying, look around at the AFC North. Watch these games. We can still compete.
So, but being unprepared is not usually something you hear in relation to Mike Tomlin, Chris.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you look at them the last 3 years, and I'll interject a little gambling here, but like they cover the last 3 years. I mean, they covered his dogs. They won those games outright. They remember them beating Cincinnati, and then 3 years ago they went up to New York, took care of business, beat them by more than a touchdown. So usually Mike Tomlin in this spot with time to prepare the whole thing. I was really excited about Kenny Pickett, still am. I'm still on the hype train. I'd love to see them get the ball to Pickens more. In an offense like that's kind of anemic at times. I would get the ball to your best playmaker. And Deontay Johnson is a guy who's got to have a better year, right? You got to find ways to get him in the end zone, the whole thing. So tough first game, but that's as tough a test as you're going to have.
So why do you say look around the rest of the AFC North and say we could still win? I mean, do you throw out the Bengals and the fact that this is what happens when Cleveland plays Cincinnati, or you just weren't as impressed by Cleveland? What?
No, I mean, I'm just not a believer in Cleveland, not to the level that some people are. I think they're a good football team. That run game is scary, and that was the perfect setting for them to run the rock in front of 70,000 wet Ohioans, wet, confident Ohioans. Man, they were going nuts, and Wyatt Teller had like the pancake of all pancakes. Yes. He took a guy 66 feet, put him on public transportation, dropped him off in the red zone. I love the blocking up front from those guys, and Njoku getting involved on that very same run. But defensively, I thought the big story was this, Jim Schwartz heating up Joe Burrow, taking away the middle of the field, run a lot of cover one, and those first couple third downs, I feel like it was a smart thing to do with Joe Burrow not taking a bunch of snaps in preseason with the injury. You got a bunch of guys that didn't take snaps because their teams decided, hey, we're not going to play the quarterback. Some guys are holding out. But this is a guy that needs to process. And I think Jim's saying, hey, we're going to speed this thing up for you. It's pretty scary when they get in 5 down, and Myles Garrett's walking over the center. It's terrifying, and you can't get into your empty stuff. So it's a tough matchup for them. I do think Deshaun has a long way to go before I think he's the Deshaun of old. And the Bengals struggle in the beginning of the season.
Chris Long, 2-time Super Bowl champion and host of Greenlight Pod, and also on Inside the NFL right here on the Rich Eisen Show. The Chris Long Bowl, if you will, Eagles-Patriots. What was your takeaway from that game, Chris?
I love the Eagles D-line. That's my takeaway. Obviously, from the Patriots side, I think you got to come away a little bit encouraged. I don't know if that sounds weird to Pats fans, but Mac Jones looked more like Mac Jones. I mean, that's more like the guy I know. Now he did let that ball get away from them, and that ended up being the difference in the game on the pick. But, I thought that there's something there with this defense. They kept the points down. They took the middle of the field away. Goddard didn't really get involved. They heated Jalen up in key situations. And honestly, you've got 10 points to come off of the Zeke fumble and the pick six. So from the Pat standpoint, I'm pretty excited for them. Not like high key excited, like low key excited. Now, when it comes to the Eagles, that D-line's the engine, and they took 29 snaps in the fourth quarter, and that's exhausting, and that's the reason you have the guys platooning. Jalen Carter, I was told, is the best defensive player on that roster.
Wow.
Okay, I was told that in preseason, and he looked like it yesterday. I mean, when he gets tilted in that 3 technique and he gets out a little wide, the guards are really uncomfortable because they're thinking, I got to set out to this big old guy. And he's got that inside move down. I thought 93, the kid from Louisiana Tech, played really well. And then my guy, Fletcher Cox, who late in his career has had to take on more of this vet role. Sometimes that's hard. You're not going to be on the field all the time. They have a chance to tie this game. It's 22-14. Fletch on the same drive, pressure early in the drive. Then he's got a TFL on a key down, and he forces an incompletion that gets him off the field on another pressure. So I just love seeing Fletcher Cox show up in that big spot, especially with the role he's got.
But the eye test, I mean, Mac Jones looked in this game certainly to put a couple touchdowns up on the board in time for Tom Brady's ceremony at halftime to be more of a celebration of a game that wasn't a blowout and an actual competition. He looked far better in this game than I saw maybe any point last year, Chris. Just the eye test alone.
Yeah.
Right?
It's he threw some really nice tight window balls over the middle of the field. Like they got to get back to that. The touchdowns were nice. He's got a real offensive coordinator, and I think the stuff that Bill ran at Bama, you can draw some things from that. I think Mac's going to be a lot more comfortable. But on the Eagles side, the one thing I would look at is, linebacker room. Nakobe Dean might miss some time. Ellis is out there. He might not be out. In an ideal world, he's not on the field as much as he is. It's a room that they've been able to overlook because they have great D linemen. But that's a level of defense I'm a little bit concerned about.
And then another franchise that's on your career playing for list, the Rams. How about the Los Angeles Rams going in and absolutely punking the Seahawks in front of the 12s with Bobby Wagner's return and Geno Smith coming off as comeback player of the year, and them having a second half dominant performance? The numbers support it, and so does the W. Where did that one come from, Chris?
McVay's a great coach, man. He really is. I mean, you talk about he's had that team ready to go every week one pretty much that he's coached that team. And I think, with Cooper Kupp going on IR, hand up here, I did not believe they had an opportunity to win that game. In fact, you're talking about the Seahawks and Witherspoon possibly being down before the game and Jamal Adams, I said, maybe if these guys are 70%, you should rest them. I was so overconfident. I think the Seattle Seahawks are a good football team, but they laid an egg, and those 2 young receivers, they go and get that kid Nakua from BYU in the 5th round. I mean, this guy is a legit player. He's a legit player. They definitely picked on the corner that was up because they were down their rookie, but these 2 guys, Tutu and Puka Nakua, had a great game, and they didn't even run the ball. So I think for Seattle, juxtapose that game to last year when they had something to prove. They need to remember who they are. In that first game last year, Russell Wilson was coming to town. They played like their hair was on fire. You got to get back to being that team that's hungry. Don't get fat and happy because you had one good year. And I think that would be the message in the locker room.
Yeah, very rare for me to say this. The Seahawks gained 12 yards on 14 offensive plays in the second half yesterday, and 9 of those 12 came in garbage time at the end. They essentially had 3 second-half yards, and the Rams shocked, and they used a bunch of guys that's on no one's fantasy teams, and that includes Stafford, to be very honest. And the thing that's everyone's talking about more than anything, Chris Long, is the fact that Geno Smith, as he's in the pocket, a microphone, I guess, that was worn by the center, picked up him saying the words, "Oh my God," as Aaron Donald was about to hit him. Did you ever cause anybody to say those words as you were coming towards anyone, Chris?
I caused a couple of offensive tackles to say "go, go, go," which is something you sometimes hear when you beat a tackle. Like, he'll yell at the quarterback, but it was like Aaron popped out of a closet and he was surprised. It was funny, man. But Aaron Donald looks great. He still looks great. He's playing with a bunch of guys you hadn't heard of, right? DK Metcalf hadn't heard of him, but they're playing good ball. They got better second-level guys than you would probably think, and they're well coached. So I don't know what they want to do this year. They're one of these teams that I think we can overestimate how much teams are like, oh, I have a plan. I'm going to be good or I'm not going to be good. We're going to punt on this season. I've said for a long time that the Rams should be hitting the reset button. I caught a lot of flack last year for saying they should trade Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald. One of those guys is gone now. I think the other guy, if this season goes south, you never know what could happen. But if they can be competitive with that group, who knows?
Chris Long, a few more minutes left with the Green Light podcast host, two-time Super Bowl champion, and also part of CW's Inside the NFL this year, right here on the Rich Eisen Show. It just seems to me when you see the Dolphins do what they did with Tyreek Hill and Tua, I know there were times last year where we thought to ourselves they're unstoppable, and then on occasion we saw it. Obviously Tua being hurt would be a difference maker. But how do you stop them? Can you stop them? Are they stoppable?
Well, it's like there were games last year where you could say, hey, they're going to have a down game, and one of them might have been that Chargers game, right? They really pressed them. Last year, played a lot of man. It was like whatever they did, though, yesterday, they couldn't stop them. And I think a big credit to Mike McDaniels, obviously. Tyreek Hill could make an argument for being the most valuable non-quarterback in the league. But Tua probably played his best fourth quarter. This guy made some throws yesterday. The throw where he climbed the pocket to hit Tyreek on the right sideline was brilliant, and the throw rolling left, I think it was Berrios on 3rd and 15. These are great throws. The fade route was perfect. So I thought Tua really, just with all eyes on him, Justin Herbert, having lost that game, and really last year they didn't play well, to come out there with that bad taste in their mouth and play that way. I don't know how you beat them. I mean, offensively, I don't know what you do. Now, the Chargers' run offense was really good, and that's something they'll want to get shored up and that sort of thing. But the Dolphins offensively are scary, and they find space. A slant to Waddle can turn into 35 yards. It's terrifying. So, and I also want to shout out Jalen Phillips. He's probably the guy, if you were drafting defensive players from that defense, that I might take first.
Really?
Yeah, and I'd look hard at some of the guys in the secondary and that sort of thing, but especially up front, including the guy they went out and mortgaged the future for with Chubb. I think Jalen Phillips is an absolute stud. With the game on the line, he had a big pressure on 3rd and 5, and then with the game on the line, he's lined up, all the way out in Temecula outside the chipper, and he's got to run 15 yards. He closes that distance fast, dips under the tackle, and the game's over. I mean, Vic Fangio heating up Justin Herbert at the right times on first down to create that intentional grounding, which is a drive killer. And then with the game on the line, another blitz. Great performance by them in crunch time.
It just seems there's always something missing with this Charger team, Chris. I don't know. It just, again, this
rushers.
I don't know.
Rushers?
What is, because the
they
line
didn't sack him.
I just don't know what it is. They didn't sack him. And Teron Armstead is out, and that's Khalil Mack, and that's Joey Bosa. J.C. Jackson commits some dumb, huge, boneheaded pass interference penalty that cost them 3 points. They lose by 2. There's always a decision made here and there that's odd. Kellen Moore's supposed to be there to help him push the ball down the field. I know they apparently had 2 deep safeties, but what's going on? Where he was checking down, and I don't know. I don't know if this is just because they lost.
Offense. I'm not going to panic about the Chargers' offense,
okay,
but I am a little worried about who's going to get home if Joey's not getting home, if Khalil's not getting home, because Joey had some nice rushes yesterday, but as you mentioned, these two tackles and the timing, Tua hits his back foot in the middle of the field, it's open, it's so I think they've got to get guys inside that can win rushes. If you want to beat Tua, you need pressure in his face. I mean, it's a cliche when you talk about quarterbacks, but you got to dent that pocket in the middle, and they couldn't do it. And so I want to give props to those tackles.
Couple more minutes left with Chris Long. Your impression of the Cowboys? I mean, is that what you expected? Sunday night?
Listen, that game should probably be. I think Brian Dable was right. Like, I don't think the Giants are competing for the NFC East. He didn't say that. I said that. But every time they play an elite, it seems like they get the doors blown off them. The Eagles last year, it's like when that's where you have to go, you see how far it is. I'm not crazy about the wide receiver room. Daniel Jones, huge contract. He's going to be under a lot of pressure. But that game should probably be 27-10, right? I mean, totally different game than they had on their script. I mean, the first drive, they're going down, they're going to get points. They get a field goal blocked. There's another defensive touchdown. Everything went wrong. And I think Brian Dable said it right after the game. It was like, I'm not going to get up here and make it about me, which a lot of coaches do after a game like that, where they start yelling and they say, guys didn't give effort. It's going to be a long flight, whatever. Dable was like, listen, we didn't execute, which is what happened. Now, what he didn't say is we got a long way to go from a talent standpoint, which I think is true. But it was a torrential downpour, the whole thing. The game played into their hands, and the Giants can't play from behind on teams.
And then last one for you, just to combine a couple of other games, Chris, who won do you think is more of an indication of who they're going to be this year, Raiders or Packers?
Packers.
Chris? You didn't start.
Packers. I think the Packers are I'll wait a couple weeks before I use the G word, but they're a good team, I think, possibly this year, especially in that division. Jordan Love's going to be a guy that everybody roots for. I mean, he's been sitting in a dark room for 4 years, no pun intended, watching film of Aaron Rodgers. And, it's his turn. And we were talking about on our show, you can't, because Kyle, my brother, was like, I'm careful saying this, but he makes some Rodgers-y throws where, like they're very creative arm angles and that sort of thing. And, when you watch a guy for 4 years, it's like being a kid and, hanging around your dad, you pick up some of the same vernacular, you get the same mannerisms. And, I think, and it's not how he would have drawn it up, but this is a really, really good way to get your first start in normal circumstances. I'm not talking about the Chiefs game. I'm talking about just waiting and being surrounded by some good talent. Dobbs, who I've had on my fantasy team, I feel like since he got in the league, and then this year somebody drafted him, took him out from under me. But Dobbs, Watson didn't play, and on defense you have a stable of rushers that got better as the year went on last year, and a coordinator who probably went a long way saving his job security a little bit. So I think this team is actually pretty decent. I don't think the Raiders are that good, but we'll see.
We'll see. All right, I lied. One last one. Jamar Chase, did you hear what he had to say after the game? Hold on a second. I want to play it. I want to play it, and I'll get your opinion. This is what Jamar Chase, after the Browns just handed the lunch to the Cincinnati Bengals.
I called L's, and we just lost to some L's, so I'm pissed on my part. I'm pissed on that, and like I said, man, we got missed opportunities. We didn't capitalize on it, and we lost. So that's how we lost.
They lost to Elves. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, Elves. I love that. They really have a thing about that elf, and I don't fully understand that logo, but I'm with Jamar Chase. But yeah, that's a real little rivalry they got going in the Bengals. They feel pressed by those guys. So circle that next game because it's going to be a lot of fun.
So how does that play in the locker room in Cleveland? I mean, what do you? I'm asking you to tap your former player to interpret.
I think there's a threshold, and once you cross that threshold, everything's been said and there's no more bulletin board material. You get ready to play a team and we might know we're better, but we're not going to say it out loud because it might be somebody from a different division or, it's just not operate. When you got a team in division that you don't like say the Saints and the Falcons, they don't tell any secrets about how they feel about each other. And it's the same thing with the Bengals and the Browns. And I like it. And if my best player, it'd be one thing if, and I don't want to pick a player out of the Bengals roster here, but like, let's say a third backer or something is like, oh, we're going to kick their ass next time we play them. Everybody's like, yo, calm down. But when Jamar Chase talks, he's one of your best players. That's fine. And, he's going to have to go out and back it up.
Well, that'll be discussed way in the future in Week 18 when they face each other. So lots more football between now and then. Who's on your pod this week, Chris? What do you got for me?
So we've got my Inside the NFL teammate, Jay Cutler. He's going to be on Wednesday. And then Friday, we've got Stanford Steve, who got a lot more famous this offseason. He's on Game Day. So, and what an addition he is. So, star-studded cast this week.
Well, okay. Very good. I don't know if this is something you want to tell your guest. We just beat a team in the Fantasy Footballers League named F. Cutler.
Very creative.
We did tell
him.
Is
the guy from Chicago?
I don't know. Could be a lot of places, Chris, as you know. But just tell Jay we actually, we did it for him. Okay.
Okay, cool. I will. All right, Rich. I appreciate you.
You got it. Get Greenlight Pod wherever you can get your podcasts. And, of course, watch Inside the NFL on the CW every single week at Joel91. Chris Long, good to see you, sir. Thanks again for the time.
Good to see you.
You bet. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.